Hello, and welcome back to Weekend Cartoon Reviews. This time, we're reviewing Moana 2. Moana 2 is Disney's newest movie, and Disney hasn't had the greatest decade with financial failures left and right, especially last year. However, their animated movies haven't been that bad, right? I admit I am a Disney apologist, but I am critical of their movies. For example, I loved Wish and thought Strange World was decent enough. However, Disney's best movie this decade, without a doubt, is still Encanto. We can all agree on that, right? Okay, good. Initially, Disney didn't have anything to release for the Thanksgiving season, like they usually do. So when Moana 2 was announced, it surprised everyone with how little time there was between the announcement and the movie's release. I also should mention that this was supposed to be a TV show made for Disney Plus, but put into theaters. Also the first Disney movie that was outsourced instead of animated at the main studio. I love the first Moana. It's one of Disney's most popular movies of the last decade, and it took the world by storm. Probably not as much as Frozen, but I digress. The songs, story, characters, and animation was amazing, so with the standards the sequel has to live up to, what did I think of it? I'm not gonna lie to you all. This was the definition of okay. Yeah, I know, awkward pause, but anyway. Yeah, sorry. I wanted to like this movie, but even going into it, I knew this was going to be mid at best. Everything about this screams this was going to be a TV show, and this would have been perfectly fine as a TV show. But I'm going to judge it as a movie, since Disney put this in theaters. What's this movie about? Moana is still wayfinding and is back home on her island. But there's not much else to explore. She finds out why because a storm god named Nalo separated all the people and islands to prevent them from exploring, and when Moana finds this out, she gets a crew together to break the curse. I could honestly summarize this entire movie if I wanted to in like 38 seconds. And at the beginning, it was fine. I was getting into it a little bit. It does a good job establishing the world and makes references to the first Moana. Then when the journey got started, I felt like the pacing slowed down as if we were on a speed bump on the road. I'm going to be comparing this film to the first one a lot throughout this review, because it feels like a shadow of the original in plenty of ways. Hard to say if the stakes are raised this time around, as all sequels should have their stakes raised, but it feels very samey. Know what I mean? With the first movie, the world was going to end if Maui didn't put the heart back into Tekka, who was corrupted. If I butchered that name, I apologize. Here, we don't really know much about Nalo aside from what he did in the past and that he's a storm. That's it! The animation, though, you can really tell it's a TV show. They definitely tried making this look as theatrical as possible. But the ocean in the first one was so much more fun to look at in the movie. At the same time, however, you could tell this was a big-budget TV show. And it's successful at the box office right now, as it was bound to be. But if Disney can make this into a success, I fear they'll start outsourcing more and we get more weaker-looking animation than what we're used to seeing from Disney. Compare this to the animation of every Disney film that came before it, and I'm not counting the direct-to-DVD sequels. I'm not gonna go that far. Like, every movie before, aside from the direct-to-DVD sequels, looks so much better, including the ones based on a TV show. Honestly, I preferred the animation of both Phineas and Ferb movies, Recess School's Out, and even Doug's first movie. Teacher's Pet is pushing it, since the movie was intentionally made to look ugly, but I digress. I can't lie and say there are some shots in the film that look decent, like when Moana and her crew get eaten by a giant sea monster and Moana is shown falling off her boat. That looks good enough and probably the best animated shot in the movie. Too bad it was in the trailer. So, good on the team there. And even during the climax, there are some good shots. Also, the animation of the Bat Lady was really good and vibrant. Probably the most animated character in the movie, and very cartoonish, if that makes sense. She was fun to watch move, and she was eye-catching. Everyone else had simple movements, to be quite honest, but the character animation I wouldn't call bad, but with the high standards Disney has set, I was left wanting more out of it. One thing I did like, however, is the voice acting. The voice acting of the movie was good, and I believe everyone did a good job delivering their lines. It's the same cast from the original movie, so I knew it was going to be good. Even the new characters had good voice acting, but I'll touch on that in a little bit here. They're all reduced to gimmicks, and I don't even remember all their names. They don't do much of plot relevance, like the old farmer guy who just wants to go back to land and not be on the mission. We have the smart one who probably is just the most forgettable one outside of the group, outside of her Australian accent. And we have the guy who just fanboys out over Maui the entire movie. They have about as much memorabilia as the side cast from Lightyear, but at least I remember most of what they did and had more screen presence in that film, even if that has its issues. The one thing, though, the movie gets 100% right is the soundtrack. Are they the best songs in Disney history? Absolutely not! Not even top 10 songs, but none of the songs sucked at least. I enjoyed them all, thankfully. With my favorites being What Could Be Better Than This and Get Lost. Get Lost has the best animation of any of the songs in the movie, but you could also tell with some of them they're trying to get the same magic of the first movie songs. All the songs from the first movie are better by a long shot. How Far I'll Go, You're Welcome, and Shiny, I can still remember all the words to, even if the songs are good in Moana 2. I don't even remember most of how they went by the end of the movie, to be honest. I was concerned knowing that TikTokers were developing the music instead of professionals, like, Disney's used to doing. But hey, they did that with Wish, and I'm one of the Wish apologists, so maybe my opinion doesn't matter on that front. I've seen a lot of mixed reception on this movie from critics and audience, including other reviewers who seem to have similar opinions as I do on this movie. I didn't hate it by all means, but I absolutely see where everyone's coming from with their criticisms. I was left disappointed with this movie, and I knew going into it, it pretty much met my expectations, even with the little surprises this movie offers. You really can just wait for this to hit Disney Plus where it was meant to be viewed, in my opinion. Now, this is where I'm going to compare this film to the first Moana. In Moana, they made being on the ocean so much fun, and we never feel like we're on the ocean for too long, and even when we are, they make being on the ocean fun to look at, you know? And even when it's not Moana and Maui, have great... even then, even when it's not fun, Moana and Maui have great chemistry. I apologize for my wording there. That was pretty bad. Anyways, and it feels like we travel to each location for just the right amount of time. In Moana 2, they're on the ocean for far too long during this movie, and it's like, get on with it. The ocean barely even interacts with Moana in this movie. In the first one, you know that's not the case, and the ocean is like its own character. Do they just not have the budget to animate the ocean interacting with Moana? Because, it's barely shown here. Okay, well, she interacts with it at the beginning and at the end of the movie, but that's not nearly enough when Moana was interacting with it in just about every scene. They're stuck on the ocean in the first movie. Yeah, go watch the first movie. I'm not exaggerating on that. Go rewatch that. Or watch it for the first time if you haven't. Anyway, Maui is pretty much not with Moana for a majority of the film, and only shows up to talk with Moana in the last third of the movie. He's separated most of the time and being held hostage. They really missed the mark there completely with that, and it sucks. It's a downgrade in every way from the first movie. There's an equal amount of good stuff and bad stuff in this film. At the very least, for a movie that was supposed to be a show, it's got a cohesive story. There's no plot holes or anything of the sort, but it's still episodes stitched together for it that was meant to be a TV show. The ocean is also just boring to look at, in general, because of what I mentioned earlier. Overall, Moana 2 is just an okay film that I probably won't watch ever again. Based on the post-credits scene, we probably will get a Moana 3. If you still really want to see it, just wait for Disney Plus. You're not missing much waiting for it to come there, and then going out to a theater to see it. However, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next review. Bye everyone, and have a great day.